Welcome one and all, Yugi Bros. Today we are doing a Relinquished versus Amazon. It's almost crazy because this was the this was the beginning of Duels, actually. Crazy how both these decks can still be relevant in today's game. Are they both tier 1? I don't really know about that, but I do know that Relinquished is still my favorite deck in Speed Duels, just because of how it plays. And they got this crazy new card called Pre-Preparation of Rites. It adds both a ritual spell from your deck to your hand and a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard whose name is listed on that ritual spell to your hand as well. Really good. Allows you to actually kind of bypass playing Senjus and Sonic Birds. Not to say that you still wouldn't play them. However, if you summon them first, one of these ends up being dead. Not that one's not dead because you can hard draw these things anyways, but it's just the principle of the matter. Amazon's going to play Twisted Personality. Amazon, I've noticed, can either play this or this No More Mrs. Nice My, which everyone knows is my new favorite skill from the Speed Duel expansion pack, I keep calling it. But Twisted Personality is still really good on discarding cards from the opponent's hand or any face-up card the opponent controls, whereas this can only destroy spell and traps. So, because this deck can do a lot of like back damage or bounce damage because of Swordswoman, we've opted to just keep Twisted Personality for now. As far as Relinquished goes, I don't think Ritual Ceremony or the Paragus skill that I'm forgetting the name of, Thousand Eyes spell, that's it. I don't think either one of those is efficient as it could have been anymore, because this is essentially a Ritual Ceremony, but Ritual Ceremony was once per duel and you could play 3 of these. And the Pegasus skill had so many downsides. You had to discard in addition to then tribute, so if whatever you discarded wasn't what you were tributing, it was an extra minus. And then also you couldn't attack that turn. It was very slow, and I don't think especially with how the game is now, I don't think it can compete as much. So I gave the deck a generic skill, and what better skill than just destroy random spell and traps on the field. I guess it could have played Twisted Personality as well, but this is a very straightforward skill, allowing us to play less spell and trap destruction than we were previously playing, and kind of give us more range. However, the concept behind it is take their monster and then swing directly with it, pop one of their back row, and you've gained advantage on both their monster and their back row in one fatal swoop between the skill and Relinquish, and that's what Relinquish does. We are still playing Cosmic Cyclone because this card is just insane, but it allows us to not play like Twisters and this and Dust Tornado, and depending on how the format goes. So Amazon's going to start out here with a Rhoda. Big help to Warriors and Amazon decks alike. Reinforcements of the army adds a level 4 or lower warrior monster from the deck to the hand. That's just really, really strong. So they can facilitate any Amazon they want now, which is kind of crazy. So they're gonna start off with Swordswoman here. The other cute thing about playing this skill, and yeah, it would be face down if it was regular, but the opponent wouldn't know it's Relinquished. In the past, if it was Ritual Ceremony or Thousand Eyes spell, I guess the Pegasus skill is less noticeable, but you kind of gave away that you were playing Relinquished, so they would go around, if they were going first, they would tend to not summon a monster, or at least not summon one in face-up attack position, making it so that you kind of had a really terrible turn 1 that you couldn't really capitalize off of. But playing something generic like this allows them to freely summon, like they said here, the Swordswoman, and they put Village up. They didn't use Heirloom yet, but that makes sense. You want to use this as more of a on your turn productive play than counter play. And Village will make it so that if this dies by battle or card effect, they get another Amazon. And this will bounce any damage back to us, and then it'll put a counter on their Twisted Personality. So it's a solid start from them, but they don't know we're playing Relinquished. So, going in, we draw a Sphere Karibo. We're going to activate Pre-Prep of Rites. This adds both Black Illusion Ritual and Relinquish to our hands. And all of a sudden, it seems like they made a really stupid play on their part. We're going to send a Sphere Karibo here because we don't have anything else to tribute. But that's fine, we have another one in hand. Summoning Relinquished, using its effect, taking their Swordswoman. We set Cosmic Cyclone here, and then we go straight to battle phase and do 1500. And then our skill goes off destroying their village. So all of a sudden we've thwarted their entire play based on solely the fact that A, they didn't know we were playing Relinquished, so they kind of played right into our hands, and B, this skill just facilitating exactly what we need. It's really good. And then we have the Cosmic Cyclone for any future problems, as you'll see in a second here. And then summon Sage, which is weaker than this, but they're going to equip it with Heirloom. For those that don't know, Heirloom says the monster equipped cannot be destroyed by battle, and after damage calculation, if the monster attacked a monster, it destroys the attacked monster. So they could straight up destroy Relinquished here if they swing into this. This will then trigger because it didn't die and it's at the end of the damage step, so it could pop like a back row, and then this will pop this, ixnaying our whole field. It's a really good play on their part. However, they don't know we have Cosmic Cyclone, so they're going to go into battle phase here, unaware, and we're going to flip Cosmic Cyclone, banishing their equip. The battle still goes through, that they take 100 and their monster is destroyed, and all of a sudden, we've got a pretty commanding board here. And crazy part here too is if they had another spell and trap and we just did our monster inflicted battle damage to there, this could still trigger, which is nuts. So I think this is insane that it's a once per turn and not like a twice per duel. This skill's nuts. So we're going to draw in another Black Illusion Ritual, which is unfortunate because we've already used one. The other two are in our hand dead, and we don't, like, if we draw another pre-prep, it's just a dead card. That is the one downside to pre-prep. So I do understand them bringing it to the game. However, I do think it definitely increases the deck's potential. We're going to swing for 15 and pass. They already have 3 counters on their Twisted Personality, so we know we're not playing around that. They did so when they took the 100 damage. So we got the free 15 in, otherwise I probably would have waited a turn. So they're going to remove 3 here and destroy Relinquished, and they're going to pray that we don't have Illusionist Faceless Magician, which we don't, which is unfortunate because in this build I'm playing 3. They're going to then summon their Trainee and set a Widespread Ruin, new card out of the next set. This is busted, as of right now anyway. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy the attack position monster your opponent controls with the highest attack, your choice of tide. It's a really good card. Definitely we'll see play going into this new format. So they're going to swing it for 15, then they get a counter on their skill. We draw into pre-prep. Go figure. Now you see exactly why this is a problem. This is the only, and it's unfortunate because it's not like siding one of these out would be the efficient way to do it. Maybe pre-prep itself, but if we're not playing Senju and Sonic Bird, you almost have to keep those in the deck. So the unfortunate part here is this, but that's just one of those things. It bricked. So we Sphere Karibo them there. We draw into Dijin, Desirer of Rituals. I'm maining one of these. I'm testing it out. Makes your ritual monster unaffected by trap cards, which is pretty good, especially now with like cards like Widespread Ruin in the game. But we're just gonna set him instead and pass. They're going to then draw into Warrior Returning Alive, another boost for this deck, adds any warrior monster from the grave to the hand. That's solid. This one doesn't actually care about level, so if you did have something 5 or higher warrior type, you could add that as well. They're going to then get their Sage back, summon Sage, have Sage swing in. We unfortunately can't stop that because neither of our back row are actually real. They're both bluffs, so they're going to roll for a option, they're going to pop that, and they're going to have their Trainee swing for game. So it's pretty crazy because the game looked like it was very one-sided and we were in a very commanding position, but as you'll see, unfortunately that was not the case. So we have to close out the game. And that's the big thing. So fixing the life points here. Oh, hopefully we won't have to do this soon. I believe it is the 26th is when Europe gets the speed box. So hopefully Dueling Book will implement all of these cards into its speed duel section by the 26th. Hopefully. That's Thanksgiving, for those that don't know. So hopefully Thanksgiving we'll have speed duel on Dueling Book the right way, and we can stop playing it like this. So they open 2 Zomas, which is pretty ridiculous, a Swordswoman and a Rhoda, so they can get whatever they want here. They have all the life point damage for this thing. We open Offerings the Jin, but we don't have a way to summon the Relinquished, so we're going to pass. They're going to end phase flip both Zomas. They're going to draw into Sage. They're going to switch all of these to attack mode, and they have everything at their disposal. We're going to Sphere the Sage so it doesn't pop our back row. They're going to have Zoma swing into our defense, so it'll wall that, basically. And then the other Zoma is going to swing it for 18 here. I would Offerings if I needed to, but I need this draw. This draw needs to go through. So we go into draw phase, and we hit pre-preparation of rites. Now we are on point. We can add both a ritual spell and a Relinquished. And what's cool is that we have both a Djinn and a Sphere in the graveyard to tribute if we want. We're going to activate Black Illusion Ritual. We're going to banish the Djinn to summon Relinquished, so this Relinquished is unaffected by trap cards. We're going to then use its effect to take control of Azoma and have this swing over the Sage, just because we don't want them to come up with some BS to get Heirloom maybe. And I want to save this again. I want to draw until we have like collectively backup plays. Not to say we don't with the Faceless Magician in hand, but I just want to be safe here. So we're going to have Relinquished swing over the Sage. They get one counter there, and they draw into Swordswoman. They're going to activate Rhoda here, adding a Sage, so they can get their option back. They're going to then summon Swordswoman instead and just straight up pass. Now, I understand the pass. They can't have this swing into this. Both of these would die, and this would be free to absorb this into the following turn. And they can't have this crash into this to put more counters. I guess they could have done that, but it leaves them less board presence, and they might as well let us try to decide how we do with their plays. Plus, they know if we summon another Relinquish the following turn and they killed this, then we just absorb this and swing for massive damage. So, I think that's probably the best play they could have done on their part. We're going to draw into Sphere Karibo, so at this point we don't really have any extra stuff, so we'll just swing into the Swordswoman. We'll take the little bit of damage, they get their counter, but it gets rid of their monster. They then draw into Widespread Ruin. They're going to summon Swordswoman and do the exact same thing, except this time they're going to set the Widespread Ruin. We're going to draw into Breaker the Magical Warrior. This is a new card I love playing in this deck. The upside to having pre-prep in this game means that you don't have to play as many Sonic Birds and Senjus that you would previously play. This means that you can play other monsters that do extra things that you then use for tributes. So enter Breaker to the Magical Warrior. This card, when it's a normal summon, gets a spell counter. That spell counter gives it 300 extra attack, so it's a 1900 beat stick. But then you can also remove that spell counter to target one spell trap on the field and destroy it. Now I know we're already playing No More Mrs. Nice Mai for the extra spell and trap destruction, but what I like Breaker for is stuff like this in this situation, where we could just get the counter and then pop the Zoma. The reason we're not popping the back row is because worst case scenario, it's just another Zoma. But best case scenario, it's Widespread Ruin, because we know this is going to be a big card in the format. This card is unaffected by traps, and this has to pop the thing with the biggest attack. So this literally is dead right now with the way this board is set up. So we're going to pop the Zoma because that's the only actual threat. We're going to have Breaker swing over Amazon, which actually means we take less damage. They still get their third counter, but we knew they were going to get that anyways, and this time we're prepared. If they pop this, we have this. So that's going to get rid of that, and then we're going to swing it for 1800. They can't widespread us because it's unaffected. I mean, they could do it, but nothing would happen. Unfortunately for them, however, our skill then pops the card anyways, so it ends up being a done deal, which is kind of cool because now that this is unaffected, it means they'd keep their back row for a future play, but then they can't do that because the pressure is still on them with this. All this deck has is now spell and trap hate, and it's great. I love it. They're going to use Twisted Personality, getting rid of Relinquished. The best thing about this is if you have Faceless Magician in hand, they don't see it in the graveyard, they assume they're free, they pray you don't have it, and then you swing it on them anyways. So we summon it in attack mode because we're baiting them to swing over this so we can summon back our Relinquished. They're going to summon Sage, and they're actually going to do it, which is kind of cool. However, we're going to Sphere here, and I don't think we needed a Sphere here, but we didn't want to lose this Offerings. This Offerings has been our back safe defensive card the entire game. So we draw in the Faceless Magician, and the reason we sphered is because we don't want to lose this Offerings. This has been our back pocket option for a while, and I would like to save it. I guess that might be a little too conservative, but it works out because we drew Faceless Magician, so we contributed our Faceless on board for the other one, which triggers this one's effect to then summon a Relinquish back. Then we just straight up absorb their Sage, and it is all but over, guys. So going into Game 3. As you can see, if this deck doesn't brick like it did Game 1, it's really good. However, you could still play a Sonic Bird and a Senju to fix that problem. I just hate the fact that they can make the other cards dead. They can fix the brick hands, but in my head, like, if you brick, you brick. Otherwise, like, if you were to summon one of those early and search it, then you set up pre-prep the brick later on, and I don't know if you actually want to do that. Hey, either way, we drew the Djinn, the pre-prep, the Breaker, and the Sphere. We're going to not use this because we don't want them to know we have Relinquished in hand, even though it's pretty set in stone that this deck usually opens Relinquished at this point. They open Offering, Sage, Lost Wind, and Warrior Returning Alive. Lost Wind's a really cool card that we got that I'm really surprised we got, honestly. This is target a face-up special summon a monster on the field. Negate its effects, also its original attack is halved. If a monster is special summoned from the opponent's extra deck while this card is in the grave, except during the damage step, you could set it to the field but banish it when it leaves the field. What's nuts about this card is that in the right matchup, it's insane, it's crazy. But then the way to facilitate it back to the field from the grave is kind of insane. I don't think that's going to happen too often now unless you're playing against XYZ, but keep in mind this is a really good card against XYZ. It's also decent against Relinquished because even though you're not probably going to get this extra effect, you are going to be able to negate Relinquish's effect because it was special summoned and half its attack. That's irrelevant. The fact is, it's already going to be dumb, but definitely an XYZ killer for sure. We're going to set Jin and pass. They're going to summon Sage. They're going to set the Lost Wind and Offerings, and they're going to swing into our monster. Now our thing dies no problem. However, what's nice about this is that it makes it so that we can be unaffected by traps. And as you guys know, a little trap at top here is kind of the thing we want to save that for. Unfortunately, they have offerings too, but we don't know that. We're going to normal summon Breaker, which is the best way to bait cards out, guys. It gets the counter, they're going to offerings it right off the bat because they don't want to lose either one of these options. They might as well just knock it out of existence. Great way to bait them. It's just a really, really powerful card. I love this card in Speed Duels. It's going to be played in a lot of things. So, accidentally hit fast forward, but we tribute the Jin with the Black Illusion Ritual to summon Relinquished, and then we're going to have Relinquished absorb the Sage, and this thing is unaffected by traps, so Lost Wind ain't doing anything. Then we're going to have our beautiful skill keep the advantage going and destroy the Lost Wind. So Lost Wind's still relevant in the graveyard if we special summon from the extra deck, but pro tip, we're not going to be special summoning any of these from the extra deck. Unless I guess we had Waking the Dragon. They get their counter. They summon Sage. They're going to have Sage swing into our Relinquished. We're going to actually let it go. Crazy thought, right? Why would we let that go? We draw into another Relinquished. We're going to tribute it for Illusionist Faceless Magician. Alternatively, we could have sphered the monster there and then had Relinquished swing over it, but we wouldn't have had a defense for an actual play. We'd rather keep the sphere, and now this thing is just live. Whenever it leaves the field, we get Relinquished back. Plus the sphere in hand, that could set up some real good plays for the future, so I thought that was a little bit better. We bring them down to 1400. And the best part is they don't have the monster on the field. If we had just let that go, we would have killed their monster this turn. We wouldn't have gained life point advantage. And we know how this card works. As soon as it pops Relinquished, we'd summon this out. But now it's set up so that if they pop this, we get Relinquished back. They're going to use the effect, actually, we didn't see this coming, and discard a random card to our hand. And guys, no joke, they hit the Sphere Karibo. So now it looks like we were really stupid. But they're going to set the Amazon, which is actually pretty clutch here, because if you swing over this, we just get Relinquished back, and if they leave it there, we swing it into that and get Relinquished back. Either way, we get Relinquished back, but this way they set this in defense. If we're foolish enough to swing into this at 1200 attack, we're going to take the damage, they're going to get a counter, and they can effectively sit on this monster until they draw a real out. We draw into Offerings to the Doomed, however, but we do set it, so this turn it's dead. We're going to swing in. We take the 400, they get their counter. So we have an out, but at the cost of skipping our draw phase. I don't know, it's fishy. They draw into Book of Moon, which is actually pretty clutch, especially against Relinquished. It's also a decent card in Relinquished because it activates as like ready for intercepting, where you could set Relinquished on a turn it had already absorbed something, set it the following turn, and then reflip it and absorb something else. It also allows them to just flip Relinquished face down as soon as it's summoned. It's basically the new ready for intercepting, but for anything. They're going to add Sage back with Warrior Returning Alive, normal summon it, set the book, and they're going to switch Swordswoman to attack mode. Now they're going to have Sage swing in. We're actually going to Offerings the Swordswoman so that this resolves, finishes it. We take 100 or 200, and then we get Relinquished back, so it sets it up perfectly to just absorb their monster going into the next turn. We don't draw because of Offerings. We use Relinquish's effect. We switch our boy to attack mode, and we swing for game, except they have Book of Moon. So they're going to flip Relinquish face down, Sage goes to the grave, and all of a sudden we don't have a play. They're going to draw into Swordswoman. Pretty clutch here. They're actually going to use the discard effect once again, getting rid of our last card in hand, which is Relinquished. And all of a sudden, they've got a really commanding presence here. They're gonna have Swordswoman swing over Relinquished. We do get Faceless Magician back, but at what cost? Like, we lost our second Relinquished. The only way we can drive this home now is this has to swing into this. And here the thing is, we could do this going into next turn. Alright, and then we get Relinquished. But depending on what we draw, kind of matters here. Because thought process is, if we put Illusionists in defense mode, they just keep ramming their Swordswoman into it. We take 700 every turn, they get counters for Twisted Personality. So it really comes down to the draw. But depending on what we draw kind of matters here. However, we hit the Faceless Magician, guys. And this is what I love about playing 3 of this. Playing 3 of it, you'd think it'd be more bricks. No. You could tribute one for the other one and then get the other one's effect. It's really dumb. Each effect is once per turn. Guys, it's nuts. It's really nuts. So we're going to tribute that, summon back Relinquished, use Relinquished's effect, take the Swordswoman, and we're home free. So it's nuts to me to think that these decks are still relevant all the way in, but we have had kind of slow changes going into this game. I don't know if either of them are tier 1. I'd probably say they're tier 1.5 or tier 2 for sure. I'd love to tell you that Relinquished is better, but just because it bested it here doesn't mean it is. And it depends how these play against other matchups, obviously. So for Amazons, we are playing the triple Swordswoman, triple Sage, and 1 Trainee. Unfortunately, Amazons didn't get really any new Amazon monster support, which is unfortunate. I think they should have deserved, especially because Harpy got one. Then we have the 3 Rhoda. The 1 Warrior returning alive. I mean, in my opinion, this seems solid to me. It might be a little much. We probably could actually cut 1 and 1. And play more generic warriors. It's always an option, but you want to, as long as you're playing these in the deck, you want to actually have your Amazoness cards. So then we play 2 Village to keep field presence, 2 Heirloom, because this card's still really good, and it baits back row destruction. 2 Cosmic Cyclone, triple Zoma, and triple Widespread Ruin. In the side deck, we were playing Crossout and Extermination. You guys are going to see this in like all my side decks, 1 and 1, if this isn't mained, of course. 1 Hammer Shot, because this deck doesn't really get over 1700 with this, unless this thing's getting any bigger. But honestly, we could probably play a second Hammer Shot and have it be absolutely fine. Another 1 Offerings, because we don't main it, 1 Book of Moon, and 1 Lost Wind. Alternatively, I was thinking we could flip-flop these skills depending on how it went. So I have them both here, but obviously if you side a skill, it takes a place of a card in your side deck. But I'm just thinking options for now. But alternatively, let's talk about Relinquished. We play 3 Relinquished, 1 Jin. Still debating whether or not this is good, but as you saw in those matches, this card was clutch. Triple Breaker the Magical Warrior, because this card is insane. Triple Faceless Magician, like I said, it's never really dead. You want to see it as fast as possible. Triple Sphere Karibo, because this is still clutch as hell in this deck. Triple Pre-Prep. This card is insane, guys. I'm still debating whether or not we play the 1 Bird and the 1 Senju, but as of right now, I think this is pretty good. Triple Black Illusion Ritual, 1 Offerings in the main deck, because you can either A, use it on your opponent, or B, use it on this or this to get the opposite. And 2 Cosmic Cyclone. We may not even need to main this between this and our skill. But the idea is it's always like a clutch card to have. And then side deck, we play 2 Jinzo, which we never brought in because we didn't really feel we needed it because we had this. This is still a debate as well. Thought process here is like, if you have this on board, or you can get this on board faster, this is always the freest of tributes. And then you get Relinquished back, and then their traps are off. Soul Exchange with this card is really good, but you could also use Soul Exchange to tribute an opponent's monster for Black Illusion Ritual, which I think is clutch, and I definitely don't see a reason not to keep playing this. It's almost like playing Super Poly. I mean, it's not, but it is in this deck, and I think that's pretty cool. The 1 Crossout and the Extermination, as I've said before, and then the 1 Book of Moon. This wasn't main decked, but like, it came down to just, I'd rather have the spot removal, and the spot removal, and the spot removal. So we're trying it in the side deck. And then, of course, this skill. What's cool about Relinquished now is it's kind of open-ended. You can play any skill you want because you have the search power that you don't need to play these specific ritual skills anymore. So you could play this. You could play Twisted Personality. You could play Hidden Parasite with Eradicating Aerosols. You can do whatever you want. But anyways, guys, what do you think? Leave a comment in the comments down below. Do you have any takes on Relinquished or Amazons that I have not? What do you think I could improve upon? Let me know. And comment, like, and subscribe as always. Click that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video. Yuki Bros out.